She's a diva with a destiny, got purpose and zest, you see. Books, business, and accessories. She walks in favor and she's blessed indeed. She keeps her head and her heels high, and her limit soars beyond the sky. If it's purpose she's pushing, you've tuned in with Table Talk with a Diva. Why? Join in, it might free ya. Hey, hey. And if you're feeling down, come in. The enemy he's trapped won't win. For God has given you vision, and in the end you shall win. Yeah. Table Talk with a Diva. Why? Join in, it might free ya. Hey, hey. And if you're feeling down, come in.
Well, good evening, and welcome back to season number 11. 1-1. God is still on the throne and doing his thing. He is reminding me every day that he is large and in charge. I am super excited. Welcome back to Table Talk with the Diva. I am your fabulous diva. You already know, Arthur Pierre Collins ×2, and I'm working on something right now. So I am so excited and elated to be back in front of your on the platform, in your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen, wherever you may be tuning in. We are super excited, delighted, and ignited to be back with you another year. I'm so excited. We have such a phenomenal guest. So I am going to ask you, because remember, sharing is caring. So I'm going to ask you right now, if you do that before we get started, to hit the share button, to send it out to a friend, a mother, a daughter. If you have, ladies, if you have a daughter or daughters, and they have not had and went through any issues with childbirth, I think it would really be a good thing for you to get them on. So ask them, if they're not too busy, they can actually listen. They don't even have to be in front of the camera or in front of the show. They can just listen to it, because this phenomenal testimony that is coming forth, I promise you, you would want to hear it to be more aware and enlightening about what is going on, because things happen throughout so many situations in the hospital. We go in for one thing, and sometimes other things happen. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you again, and we're Facebook and YouTube Live. So if you are tuning in by YouTube Live, we want to say thank you and welcome for joining. If you're Facebook Live, thank you, thank you, thank you. I need you to hear this powerful testimony of Miss Jonquette. She is a beautiful, phenomenal wife and a mother of 4 beautiful, amazing children. And she has a testimony that only God could have brought her through. So I want to get the information out. I want to get the awareness out on how important things can go wrong in a matter of seconds. And so we would say we know it, but you need to hear this. Because if it's your daughter, if it was your daughter or your granddaughter, you would be, feeling some type of way about it. And so now we want for her to come on and share with us a little bit of what took place and how God has made it all brand new, and her journey on what has happened. So I'm so grateful today. And before we bring her on, we want to say happy Valentine's Love Month to everyone. So even if you're not married, if you're not dating, if you're not engaged, know that you matter, and self-care is the best care. So you don't wait for somebody else to validate you and love you. You've got to do all those things for yourself. So before you are trying to receive it, you got to give it. So without you loving on you, can nobody show up in your world and weather the storm and make the difference. And some people go head over heels about the husband, the man, that's wonderful to respect them in their respectful places, but you have got to love yourself first. And I just felt the need to get that out there, because sometimes some of the other ones, the young ones, they get a little caught up on what the man is doing, what he is doing in my boyfriend. Yeah, that's wonderful, baby. But if you don't love yourself, his love is second. So yours is first. So there has to be your love, the self-love first. And that's within loving and respecting and validating yourself. So with that being said, happy Valentine's Day. And if there's no one to take you out to dinner or buy you candy, buy yourself some candy. Take yourself to dinner. Enjoy that me time, because it's quality time and it is well worth it, because you are worth it. And also, we are celebrating Heart Disease Month where we wear the red. So, whatever day that is, throw on your red and represent for heart disease. My husband is definitely a patient of heart disease. And so, we celebrate his life and God just doing new things with the heart. And so, we want to support them in this month, the month of February. So, with that being said, we are going to bring on the phenomenal John Quet.
Hi,
Good
y'all.
evening. Hello there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good to see you.
Yes, good to see you. I mean, do we need a show after that introduction? That was absolutely pun intended fabulous.
Oh my
That
God.
was amazing. No, oh, good.
Thank
I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh my God. I can't even articulate how I'm feeling right now. I'm bubbling. I'm so excited. I was, saddened to hear pieces when we chatted a minute ago in regards to you coming on, and my daughter was just overwhelmed, and she said, "Mommy, you got to get John Quet on your show." And I was like, "But what is going on?" And she was trying to tell me, she's driving, and she said, and I was just crying, and I'm like, "Oh my God, Mommy, you got to hear this." And so when I heard it, I was in my kitchen cooking, and I could not stop crying as you were pouring and sharing some of the, ooh, girl, that I'm saying only God. All I can think about the goodness of God. So I'm so elated. So if you would do me a favor, first of all, and tell the people exactly who you are.
So, my name is John Quet, Sanders White. I have many titles, but my favorite, of course, is a child of God. I'm a wife and I'm a mama. I am an author. I am a coach, a consultant. I have multiple businesses. Um, but again, I have many titles, and more than anything, I'm Joe to so many people. So, Joe, John Quet, your friend for today.
Listen, 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 how humble and powerful you are. Such a beautiful vessel in the kingdom. And so God needs more and more of us just like that. So thank you for that. And I want to share, I normally do an icebreaker, so I wasn't going to do it. I said, no, I think I am going to do it because we're in Black History Month as well. But this didn't have nothing to do with Black history, but there's so many things going on in the month of February. So words are important, of course. We have the option to choose life or death, or what we speak, being intentional and very transparent when we talk and when I speak. So some people say, "You just said that." I said, "Well, I said what I meant, and I meant what I said." So, I mean, they got to take it however they take it, but I'm careful and I'm always thoughtful of their feelings. But the truth is the truth. And so that's some of my mama that's in me. And so my mama taught me how to be a mama, and I'm a mama and a mommy, but definitely words are important. So with that being said, I'm going to say a word, and then I'm going to give you, well, I'll give you one word, and then you give me the first one word that comes to your mind. And I'm
Okay.
going to give you two words, but I know because you're such a phenomenal woman, you're going to be really ready. You're probably going to icebreaker on that, just melt it down to quick water. But anyway, we're going to roll with it.
I'm
We're going to
ready.
roll with it. Okay, so I said the first word would be divine.
Mm, Destiny.
Come on. Okay. I'm making my notes here. Um, eternal.
Life.
There we have it. I'm gonna give you one more because you're so fast and so quick and so sharp. Uh, purposeful.
Gift.
That's good right there to me. That's good.
That's
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 good. That's good
the
right there
gift.
to me. The
That's a
gift.
gift.
Hallelujah. Well, I definitely received that. Like again, I said, life, I mean, words are important. And so I always have to say this and give kudos to my, which one is he? My third oldest brother. I got a few. Jimmy taught me years ago when I was in a very, very dark place and my life was in shambles. And he said, and I began to share things with him as we're driving to visit him and his family, my family at home in North Carolina. And I was talking, and he said, "You know what? I need you to start framing your world with your words."
Mm,
I know that you're hurting. I know that this has happened and you're not happy with this and that and all those good things. He said, but I need you to start framing your world with your words so you get what you give. So what you speak out of your mouth is exactly what you will get. He said, so remember that. And I thought, like, well, I'm hurting and the sister Nick would kind of look at him while he's driving. And then the Lord began to deal with me on it and said, yeah, exactly. Frame your world with your words. So
yeah,
be
that's
what you speak, you
mm,
know. And so a lot of times, things are going on, and we may say, "This thing almost killed me." Well,
mhm,
oh, my
right,
God, it's hurting me. I'm just about to die. No, you are
right,
not. It may be paining, but you're not about to die. So don't speak that. Then God will have to just honor your words and give you what you say. So the word
right.
tells us in, I think it's in Numbers, and He says, "I will give you exactly what I hear you say." So God is always listening to the words that we speak. So that's part of the reason. That's the main reason why I do the icebreaker on how important it is to watch your words and be mindful of what you're speaking, because you're bringing life to it. So frame your world with your words. And so
Yes, that's
that's
so good. That's
Thank
so
you,
good.
James Arthur Washington, the junior, my brother. We call him Jimmy, but thank you because Jimmy has blessed me so many ways. But moving right along. And so today we want to share, because I know a lot of people were kind of reading the title, like, what exactly, maternal? I mean, what about it? What about it? Tune in and hear. Tune in and listen. So on YouTube, if you're listening up, I want you to, if you can, please hit that button and hit subscribe. And remember to like and share. Again, sharing is caring. And if you're just tuning into Facebook Live, thank you so much for tuning in. But we definitely need you to tag, because we want to get this episode out and as many people. She's been on many platforms, and I'll let her kind of even share some of that before she get into the story. Can you tell them some of the platforms that you've been on, sharing your powerful testimony?
Yes, I've been on with the amazing Trish Stanley on Trish Stanley TV. Did an interview with her. I've been at multiple universities. Spoken to South Carolina State University. Um, so many different universities. I've been keynote conferences, at summits, so many different platforms. Even shared it, live on multiple podcasts as well. So yeah, multiple platforms. I've been able to share this testimony, share this story.
It is, and it blessed me. So I'm going to go ahead and get you started. So let's go ahead and chat it out. So if you want to start, and I'm sure, like I said, it's always a guided flow. So I want to listen as they can hear how important. And while I was sharing the flyer so much, because I want them to hear what has transpired in your life when you went to the hospital on a typical day to give birth to your baby.
Absolutely. So you want me to go ahead and hop in with the story, or?
Take your time, do what you do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They need to hear how good God is.
Okay, absolutely. So, we all know, this is the love month, and before I kind of hop in to share with you the details of the story, I just want to emphasize why it's so important to talk about this, not just maternal health, for se, but to, you know, Kiera talked about this being the love month, but I also want to make sure that I highlight, um, the love that God has for me, of course, my family, my children, right? All of those involved. But even for you as you're listening in your perspective lives, like God is not a respecter of man. So the same love that He had shown for me that day, He'll show it for you in whatever situation it is. So I just want to make sure that I give God His glory that is due, but also just thank my husband for the love that he has for me. And you'll see why, as I share this story with you. So again, I'm going to highlight the maternal help, but I'm also going to highlight um, God's hand in this entire love story that I would call my life, in every area, on every single segment of my life, from my spiritual, my mental, my physical, my entire life. In spite of it all, is a love story. So long story short, I ended up having my fourth baby. I knew this experience was going to be another C-section. I had had 3 prior C-sections with my other babies. So, of course, this was expected. Usually they'll say If you have a C-section once, you're most likely going to have it again. Not always the case, but usually that's what it looks like. And I just remember that Monday, and this is the end of 2022, the week of Thanksgiving. And I remember going in to see the doctor that Monday and telling my doctor, I just had this like this feeling that I was going to have birth, like naturally. So could we go ahead and do my cesarean before he left town? And of course, being the doctor, doctors know best. He's like, well, you've never had your water break. You're not going to have this baby naturally. This baby's not coming until I take this baby. And I'm like, okay, I just have this feeling that my baby's going to come early. Lo and behold, fast forward to that Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving in 2022, about 5 o'clock that night. I just remember Googling, 5 o'clock that morning. Let me change that. 5 o'clock that morning. I just remember Googling, like, how do you know if your water breaks? Like, what does it feel like when your water breaks? Just randomly Googling and on Reddit, reading forums. And all of a sudden I hear, and I feel and I'm like, oh my gosh, was that my water breaking? Like, what was that? And I remember standing up and water just gushed down my legs. And I just remember screaming to my husband, like, oh my goodness, my water broke, my water broke. My body can do what it was created to do. See, these doctors don't know I can have my baby naturally. And of course, I was super excited. But knowing, the information that I know, if you've had prior C-sections, there could be different things like scar tissue or whatsoever. It's important that you do get to the hospital. And so, of course, my husband's kind of freaking out. This is our first encounter of, having a spontaneous breaking of or rupture of the membrane is what they call it, breaking of the water. And, we call our friends to watch our boys until my in-laws come. They were about an hour and a half away. And my husband and I get our bags together and we drive to the hospital. Get to the hospital about 6 o'clock, 6:15-ish. And when I get there, nobody's there, but the nurses are talking to me, they're triaging me in, and then they finally confirm that my water did break. So they say they're going to call the doctor on call. My husband and I did not think that it would be my doctor because, again, my doctor was getting ready to leave out of town for the holidays because it was Thanksgiving. But to our surprise, my doctor was actually the doctor on call. And from my understanding, they were actually getting ready to switch from the 12-12 shift. 12-hour shift that they do. And however, though, when he heard that it was me, he of course agreed, to move forward and perform the procedure, just because I had to emphasize how important it is for my doctor to deliver my baby, the doctor that I've worked with, for these past few years. And so the nurses, they were getting me prepped for the cesarean. Usually prep takes about 45 minutes. This time it took them about 5 to 10 minutes to get me ready for prep. And that's IV and everything. And they get me prepped, get my gown on, and then they give my husband his PPE gear so that he can get dressed to go back into the operation room with me. And I just remember looking at my husband saying, babe, I feel like they're rushing on me. And he says, they are moving pretty fast, but we're going to pray and everything's going to be okay. So we pray. They sit me in the wheelchair to wheel me back to the operation room. And I just remember getting wheeled down the hallway, and I could feel the wind hit my face, and I trying to read the signs on the walls, and I couldn't read them because she was pushing me like Speedy Gonzalez. And I just turned to the nurse and I say, hey, what's the rush? And she says, well, you're not on schedule today for a C-section, and we have to get you in and out. And I'm thinking to myself, like, don't people have babies like all the time? Are they always rushing like this? But again, no negative thoughts, all positive thoughts. We're about to have this baby. So they get me back to the operation room and they perform my spinal. Usually you're like numb here down so that they can perform that cesarean, and they get me down on the operation table. My husband comes in, the doctors and the team and the staff all come in and they perform the usual protocol. Baby girl is perfectly healthy. Side note, I had no issues with my pregnancy. Great pregnancy. Baby was healthy. And my delivery with the baby was actually healthy. She came out and it was perfectly fine. And then they closed me up. And then they take me back to PACU. For those of you who do not know, PACU is usually where you go. It's post-anesthesia care unit. So it's where you go whenever they numb you. They want to make sure that you start to get that feeling back into your legs and in your body to make sure everything's wearing off as it should. And usually PACU is around about an hour, usually, from my past experiences. And this time, though, it ended up being not 1 hour, not 2 hours, but 3 hours. And I start to ask questions like, why am I still here? Like, why do you guys have me back here? I'm ready to see my baby. I'm ready to see my husband. Like, what is going on? I mean, I'm perfectly stable. I'm alert. Everything is normal. My vitals are great. So I just had so many questions, and I could just see the doctors coming in, pressing on my uterus, and they're looking down and they're pressing. And then a nurse comes and tells me, she says, well, you're bleeding a little more than we'd like. So we're going to give your doctor a call just so that he can come back. But it's nothing emergent, not an emergency. We're just going to have him come back and take a look at you. So apparently my doctor had left, but they call him back and he comes back to where I am. And literally within the instant he comes back, he says, hey, Jonquette, unfortunately, you're bleeding a lot more than we'd like for you to be bleeding. Again, nothing emergent, but we're just going to go ahead and do a hysterectomy on you. Of course, I have a million questions, like a hysterectomy, like why hysterectomy, but if I'm bleeding, is there anything we can do? And from my understanding, usually the typical protocol is they would do a scan to kind of assess where you're bleeding, or what they would call a laparotomy to kind of go in and assess. But my estimation is that maybe, they were still in that rush to get out of town. And so they automatically jumped from A to Z and perform that hysterectomy on me without doing the due diligence of seeing or assessing the situation. And they call my husband back, inform my husband. And of course, we agree because we're like, well, if I'm bleeding, we need to stop the bleeding. And he says, well, I've been doing this for 25 years. 20 plus years. I know what I'm doing. Like, this is how we're going to stop the bleeding. So stop the bleeding. That's the biggest thing. And of course, if you're on the bed, right, and you're the one bleeding out, you're like, okay, whatever we got to do. We do what we got to do to stop bleeding. Because we hear so many stories, even from the lowest of the lows to the highest of the highs, like Serena Williams, women of color, we have more of these incidents and we die at 3 times the rates of our counterparts from bleeding during cesareans. So all that to say, my husband and I, we prayed before they take me back. They put me to sleep because they have to go back in and open up that incision that they just had closed. So they had stapled it and everything, and they have to go back in it to perform that hysterectomy. So the doctor and his partner come in, they perform my hysterectomy. There were 2 males, and they put in the notes that there was oozing at the lower uterine level. So not even significant bleeding or anything, just oozing, meaning that we believe, and from other OBs and everyone looking at my records, that there was more than enough time for them to kind of assess the situation before still proceeding to do a hysterectomy. And so they perform that hysterectomy, and that takes about 2 hours, and they close me up. They take me back to PACU, and this time they have a third partner watching over me. She was a female doctor, and I'm in PACU this time for 4 additional hours. And while I'm in PACU, my hemoglobin goes from a 13 to a 3.7, which is critical in a span of 4 hours. And not only does my hemoglobin goes to a 13 to a 3.7, but I also have tachycardia, which is a rapid heart rate. So my heart's beating really, really, really fast, and it's really high. And usually both of those are more than enough signs to say that, okay, there's some active bleeding going on. And instead of, the doctor who's watching over me in PACU, the third partner, saying, well, hey, my partner just did a surgery to stop bleeding per se. Why is she still actively bleeding? She instead just gives me 1 bag of blood and sends me in the room with my husband and my baby. I get to the room with my husband and my baby. It's now about 6, 7 o'clock that night. So it's been about 12 hours since I gave birth and 12 hours since I've been bleeding. And I'm in the room, they were trying to get the baby to breastfeed. Everybody's talking to me. They were at one point kind of still pressing on my belly, and they forgot that I had a hysterectomy, so there's no uterus to feel. And they were just kind of talking, going back and forth. The machine is going off every 15 minutes, and they would just come turn it off, going off every 15 minutes, stating that my heart rate is getting higher and higher. Usually when you're resting, your heart rate is between 60 to 100. Mine was a 168. which was extremely high. And they kept me in that room with my husband and my baby for 5 additional hours until about 11 o'clock that night. And now, at that point, I've been bleeding for 17 hours since I had given birth. And finally, about 11 o'clock that night, a doctor comes in and she says, well, it looks like your belly's getting bigger. They measure it with a string and they said, okay, yes, it's definitely bigger. And so to give you some perspective, basically, I went in to have one baby. It looked like I was pregnant with 4. And so they take me to ICU so that I could be monitored. And believe it or not, in ICU, I actually perk up a little bit. Like anesthesia's worn off quite a bit. They have me under the medicines, and I'm talking to my husband on the phone, and he's saying all the great things the husband should say. Baby's beautiful just like you. You're so strong. Can't wait to see you. All the great things he should say in this time to kind of make me feel better. And he says, but you sound tired. As I'm talking back to him, he's like, you sound tired. You've been through a lot. You need to get you some rest. And I agree. I said, yeah, I have been through a lot. Let me try to get some rest. And so we hang up. I close my eyes. He shoots me a text, tells me he loves me. I text him back, I love him too. And then I close my eyes again. Then I hear a voice, and the voice says, wake up, you're about to die. And for me, I'm like, well, why am I having these negative thoughts? I'm not about to die. Like, that's just me thinking. And then I hear the voice again, even louder. And it says, no, wake up. You are about to die. And in that instant, I felt death come over me. Like I felt it. Like I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm about to die. Let me call my husband. And I picked my phone back up, call my husband. I'm like, hey babe, you need to check on me. Something is wrong. I'm about to die. And he's like, what are you talking about? I just got off the phone with you. What do you mean you're about to die? I said, no, Tristan, something is wrong. You need to get somebody to check on me, or you need to check on me. I'm about to die. And in that instant, he knew it. Like there was a pause. He knew it. And of course, he's downstairs in the labor and delivery with our baby. And he rushes out the room, kind of gives the baby to the nursery, to the nurses in the nursery. He's screaming at the front desk, like, I'm going to check on my wife. Something's wrong with her. You guys check on her. And he's, of course, rushing to me. So he's in the elevator talking to me, stay on the phone with me, stay on the phone. I'm coming. He knows I'm in ICU, but he doesn't know which room. And I couldn't tell him which room because all I know is they just wheeled me into ICU. So he's working his way to get to me to ICU. Meanwhile, he's on this side doing all of that. On my side, when he tells me that he's getting to me, the machines now in ICU are starting to go stir crazy, even more worse than what they were when I was in labor and delivery. And you can hear all the frenzy, and a nurse comes in and she's like, did you watch something scary? Like, did you Google something? Why is your heart rate high? And I tell her, well, no, I didn't Google anything, or I didn't watch anything scary. I just don't feel good. And she says, well, are you on the phone? And I said, yes, ma'am, I'm on the phone. And she gets my phone and she tells my husband she's going to call him later. So they hang up the phone on my husband. Of course, he's freaking out because he knows I'm in ICU. He just doesn't know where. And by the time he gets to ICU, at the desk, they tell him that he can't come back because they're working on me. Meanwhile, he hears them all over the intercoms, calling all the codes, and he sees a team of doctors and nurses rush into a room, and he instantly knew it was me. But he couldn't do anything. They told him that he had to go back to the waiting room, and he goes to the waiting room till somebody tells him something. And all I know is when she hung up that phone, all I remember is just doctors and nurses rushing into my room, and they're screaming like a frantic movie, and they're screaming to the top of their lungs like, she's dying, she's crashing, get the intubator. And they're just screaming, and they're going back and forth. And I remember at one point they didn't have something. And doctor's like, I don't care, you get it. And they were just going back and forth. And I remember looking at them all flushed red. And I said, God, they can't save me. And I look at the machine. Prior to me going into PR marketing, I was actually a pre-med major. So I'm one of those people who can advocate for myself, right? I can assess the situation. And I just remember looking at the monitor, and I could see that my heart rate was extremely high, but my blood pressure was tanking. And that meant that my heart was trying to pump blood that it did not have. And I remember turning on my back, and now like, okay, this is between me and you, God, because I'm dying. The doctors and nurses are freaking out. And ironically, although I'm alive, I could feel my body shutting down on me. And I'm talking to God, I'm praying to God, like, God, please don't let me die. You know, my mom passed away a few years ago. My babies need me. Like, I can't die. There's no way you can let me die. Please help me. And then all of a sudden, I start to feel pain over my entire body. Like every strand of hair on my body hurt, on my head, on my toes. It hurt. And I could just remember feeling like somebody had drove a tractor, like an 18-wheeler on top of me in park. Um, and it turns out that what I was feeling was my body was actually shutting down. So that pressure that I felt on my chest, I'd actually went into respiratory failure. And so my lungs had collapsed, so I couldn't breathe. And then my organs started to fail because I went into hypovolemic shock. So that's the pain that I felt while cognitively still alive. When they say that the mind is the last thing to go, it is. It is. Your mind is the last thing to go. And I felt, and I knew I was dying. And I started screaming at God at this point. I'm like, God, please don't let me die. I can't die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Please, please, please. And I'm just pleading with God and begging him. And it got to a point where I hurt so bad. And I said, God, I don't want to die, but you do what you got to do. And I black out. Here's the kicker. I woke up instantly. Like I knew I was just in a hospital screaming for my life. They were trying to save my life and I'm screaming. And now I'm here. But here was not the place that I thought I would be. Like I'm like, okay, well, I'm not in heaven because I don't see the Lord. And I know if anybody sees the Lord, I'm going to see Jesus. I'm going to touch Jesus. And I don't see him, right? I don't see angels. I don't see, I don't see the heart. I don't see all of this, the pearly gates. Like, where am I? Instead, I woke up and I was in this green field. The grass was such a vibrant green and there were like blades of grass. There were huge trees. There were hundreds of thousands of people in this field, like little children running around. There were adults, all different ethnicities, all different shapes and sizes. And I'm like, where the heck am I? And I could hear streams of water. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. And the air here in this place, it was so crisp, like I could taste it. Like, somebody cut some grass and you walk out and you like, I'm like, goodness, where am I? And then I look back out in the field again. And I'm like, is that my uncle? Like, I see two of my uncles who had died. I went to their funerals. So if I see them, then that meant I died. I'm looking at my body. I'm not pregnant anymore. It's like the perfect body. And I'm like, well, God, did you really just let me die? Like, no way. Like, and I'm trying to wrap my head around this because I'm like, God, there's no way you let me die during childbirth. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm the one. I eat all organically. I have the birthing plans. I can advocate for myself. I check all the boxes off. So there's no way that this happened to me, right? I mean, I had an education. I have a great business. Like, I'm trying to talk to God and say, God, I need a reason to understand why and how did this happen. And by all means, I'm not perfect either. But let me tell you something. If there's somebody who loves the Lord and tries to do right and try to treat people kind and just do right in life, period, I'm one of those people. So again, I could not grasp how this had happened to me. And then I started having a conversation and dialogue with God, and when I say conversation, it's me talking to God. He hasn't said anything back. And when I'm talking to him, it's not verbal, it's all cognitive in this place, right? So I'm talking to God. I'm like, okay, well, God, if you let me die, then who's gonna, walk my babies down the aisle? Like, I'm gonna miss their weddings. I'm gonna miss their graduations. The boys, they're gonna blame their sister, right? My daughter is gonna think this is her fault. She's gonna live with that for the rest of her life. That she's the reason her mom died, right? And she never got to meet her. So I'm having all these thoughts. Then I started thinking like a woman, of course, and like, well, who's my husband gonna remarry? God, he better not remarry. Nobody's gonna love my husband like I love him. All these thoughts, right? Like, God, doesn't even know where the insurance papers are because I did all that. He better cook those kids some dinner tonight. So I'm having all of these thoughts, a million thoughts in 5 seconds. Then all of a sudden it left, like it vanished. That feeling of overwhelm and anxiety left. And then I instantly start to feel like peace come over me. So I want to bring this into perspective too. So these little children that was in the field, they were running around playing with each other. But these adults, they were just in a state of awe. So I'm assuming whatever bliss that they were feeling, or glory, for lack of better words, it started to make its way to me. And I went from overwhelming anxiety to, well, God, if you allow this to happen, that means you have a purpose and a plan for me. I started reminding myself of God's goodness. My entire life, you've been with me. You've never left me. You never forsaken me. And although this is not the plan I have for my life or my family, God, I'm not there to take care of my children or my husband anymore. You have to take care of them. And in that instance, I completely surrendered my entire life, my plans, the people I love the most, I gave them back to God. And for those of you who know me outside of just this interview, like I'm a planner. Like, I'm going to plan out my life. I'm going to plan it for the next 5 years, and I'm going to do those things, and I'm going to do it like that. That's how I operate. And so I'm a person who I like to have control. And for me, surrendering to God, I gave up all control. Like, I'm like, God, okay, this is what you have. And I truly believe that God's plans were and still are better than any plan that I could have for my own life. And so I surrendered, and I made a decision to stay in this place. And so I started walking out into this place, into this field. Then all of a sudden, my mom appeared. My mom passed away at this time about 6 years ago, now 8. And she just appears. And she's the only one in this field that acknowledged me. And she's sort of looking off, and then she turns her head to me, and she gives me those mama eyes, or you don't have to say anything, but you know what mama means. And she's like, you get back to your husband and your babies. Here's another kicker. My mom only saw one of my children. How did she know that I had multiple babies? It's something that I think about even until this day. Like, how did you know? You didn't say baby, you said babies. And my mama knew, and she said, you get back. And then she left. She vanished. Right after that, I had 2 little snapshots or visions that's of something that hadn't happened. I saw my husband and I get baptized on the beach together, something we've always wanted to do. And I saw all 4 of my babies get christened. Granted, it has been 22 hours since I had given birth, and I have not held my baby girl yet, but I saw her with her brothers. And I woke up, and that felt like 1 minute of my time. But when I woke up, it was 2 days later. During these 2 days, turns out that they finally, after sending my husband to the waiting room, finally came back to talk to my husband, and they basically told him, your wife is dead. Like, I was on life support. Like, I was intubated. I had bled out. And 2 doctors come, they tell them kind of what has happened. It's one doctor who's kind of telling them everything. They should have did this. The doctor should have did this. They neglected your wife. All of these things that happened. And ultimately, they finally told my husband that they were rushing on me, the doctors, and they cut my artery because they were rushing. And not only did they cut my artery, but they had a million signs that there was something wrong. And nobody cared enough for me or my family or my children or my newborn baby to do their due diligence and assess the situation. Nobody. They just let me bleed for over 22 hours at the hospital with a million signs. And so the doctors, who's kind of giving him the spiel, he's like, they want me to go back and, try to fix her artery. That's the third thing. We just need your permission. But honestly, she's basically a vegetable. Like, she's bled out. There's no blood or anything in her body. And this is basically like a CYA. So basically he was just saying, like, they're trying to cover their blood. Like, there's nothing we can do really. And of course my husband's like, well, do what you can. You guys do what you can. Like, I give you permission to do this third surgery. Because again, I had already had the cesarean and the hysterectomy. Now this would be my third surgery in 24 hours with the embolization of the artery. However, though, they had no real hope that I would survive. So they actually just walked my husband back to tell me goodbye before they took me back. So they walked my husband back, and they let him talk to me. And my husband said that I was cold to touch and I was a shell. So basically, if you've seen somebody in a casket, when they're not there. And I was gone. And he said, he went out, and as he's walking out, the nurses are getting him to sign the papers to basically, saying that this surgery may or may not work. And he said that as they're talking to him, he hears a voice that says, "You can't be her husband. You have to be her champion." And he knew then that he could not agree with anything that they were saying. In fact, he said he tuned them out so much that as they were talking to him, he could visually see their words go in one of his ears and out of the other. He said he walked back to the waiting room and he just dropped his knees and started praying. He said, "I prayed so hard, I started to sweat. And I'm praying for hours and hours as they're working on you." And he said, "There's one thing that came to mind. Talk about the principle and power of vision. Maybe another time we'll talk about that, right?" But he said there was something that came to his mind. And when we were dating, we both went to Georgia Southern and we were on our date. And this is pre-children, pre-marriage. And I said, "Hey, babe, one day we're going to get married and we're going to have 4 children." And I know this because I was on stage accepting an award and I saw you guys in the audience. And then my husband, he's so humble and just so soft-spoken. He's just like chuckles and he's like, "We'll get married, but we're not having 4 kids." Like he had just imagined us only having 2. And he said, but in this moment of him praying on his knees to God and just sweating and giving everything he had, that came to his remembrance. And he tested God. He said, "God, I have my wife. We have our 4 children. If she dies because she has not accepted that award, if my wife dies, you're a liar." And then he says, even to himself, or wherever doubt that could have been there, he says, "Well, God, she can't die. Even if she's already dead, she can't die because you keep all of your promises. You never lie." And from that moment forward, he started speaking to himself and withholding that vision, right? This promise that God had, because God can't break his promises. And he started speaking to the promise. He started speaking to the situation and he started proclaiming my healing. He kept saying, "My wife is healed. She's already healed. She's already healed." And he spoke that until the doctors came back and told him that the surgery was successful. Here's another thing. The doctor who told my husband everything, about what happened, how I was neglected and delayed and all that stuff, he's the only doctor after this situation who told me anything about what had happened to me. I begged doctors, I asked questions. Nobody told me anything. In fact, I was removed from my practice with all those OBs who had overseen me because they told me I was a liability. And then nobody would answer my questions or tell me anything to even help me navigate this journey that I was about to embark on. Nobody. But this doctor is the only doctor that actually called me back to tell me what had happened. And he said, there was something weird that had happened. He said that when they brung you out, you were dead, like you were seconds away from cardiac arrest. And I told them, "She's dead. I can't save a dead woman, so I can't do anything for her." But he heard a voice or something to tell him to do it anyways. And he decided to perform the surgery on me. And he said, as he's working on me, in a span of 2 hours of him performing that artery embolization, he saw that my artery was severely cut. It wasn't just a nick, it was a cut. That's why I bled out so fast and pachy that second time. My hemoglobin dropped so low. And he said he's not sure how they could even miss this. It was cut so bad and I bled out. It was just gushing out like a water hose. And he said, there are 2 things he couldn't understand is 1, how did they miss this? 2, how did I survive so long without any blood? I had lost all the blood in my body over the span of those 22 hours. In fact, within the 2 hours of him performing that surgery, he had to give me 23 units of blood total. That's more than what my body could hold. I ended up going home with over 3 gallons of blood in my stomach that I had to absorb naturally because it had basically, it turned to jello. So they couldn't take it out of me. And so after a few weeks, I was able to go home and I had to recover. I didn't get to meet my baby girl until about a month later, because even after I left the hospital, I had to recover at home. It was horrible. I had to learn how to walk again. I spent all of 2023 in and out of the hospital. I had to learn how to walk again. I ended up getting something called diabetes insipidus. diabetes insipidus is because I had no blood going to my brain. So I was on medicines for a while. I was on blood pressure medicines. They gave me so much fentanyl and all that to kind of keep me alive. I actually went through drug withdrawals because I had been on drugs so long in the hospital, and fentanyl is, it's a whole nother crisis in itself. So my body was withdrawing from that. And then I ended up getting jaundice, and I've had issues with my liver. So it's been quite the journey. And I never imagined at the age of, I was only 28 at the time. I'm 30 now. At the age of 28 years old, I went from being perfectly healthy and okay, anticipating my baby, to becoming a baby myself. Like, I've never imagined my husband having to wipe my butt, feed me, take care of me, bathe me like a baby. And not only that, that entire year, he had to raise me, our newborn baby girl, and 3 other children under the age of 6. And I don't know how he did it. There were moments where I was just going through so much where I felt like they should have just let me die in the hospital. Like, I just felt that. I ended up having survivor's remorse. Like, I was like, well, God, why did you keep me alive and you let all these other moms die? Why did you choose me? And I just, when I tell you guys, it was a physical, a spiritual, and a mental battle for quite a while. And even now, I'm still in the process of recovering, because they had given me so much blood in the hospital. Usually where I would release it naturally monthly as a woman, they had removed my uterus. So all that blood that they gave me, all that iron, was stored in my liver. And I'm not sure if they can see this. No, it was stored in my liver. And I've been having to do something called bloodlet, because what happens is if you have too much iron in your liver, it acts as if you have cirrhosis of the liver, or damaged liver. And I don't drink at all. And I remember going to the doctor for an issue, and they're like, are you an alcoholic? I'm like, no, I don't drink at all. And they were able to see that I had too much iron in my liver. So I've been having to go get blood taken out of my body to get rid of some of that iron. And here's another issue that had arose, is because I ended up going into hypothalamic shock and my body ended up crashing. All of my veins had collapsed as well. And so they've been having to use like the smallest little butterfly to kind of get the blood out of me. So it's been an ordeal, but I'm so grateful. I'm going to hold up a few pictures to the camera to see if you guys can see this. So this is my arm. I had been stuck so much they couldn't stick me anymore. Here is my belly.
Jesus.
That's the 3 gallons of blood. Here's me leaving the hospital. That's not a baby. My baby left the hospital before me. That's blood in my stomach.
Lord Jesus.
Here is another picture you can see of my belly from the front. That's blood.
My God.
And it was hard as a rock. And yeah, I was in and out of the hospital, but by the grace of God, I'm here today to tell this story. I have so many people say, I know there's so many factors at play. One environment is, thank God that I have people around me to pray for me. I'm glad that God loved me. I was a child of God. I am a child of God. I'm glad that I have a husband in my corner. I'm so glad that, God still has purpose. And that's one thing I know, that if you still have purpose and God has a plan for your life, not even death can thwart that plan. Like, death can't stop that plan if you're walking in purpose. So I encourage you, find out why you're here. Keep walking in purpose. Keep pressing towards the mark, right? And the prize of the high call. Like, you keep walking, because God is going to be with you on that path. And we hear so many stories, from the Hebrew boys, right? Meshach, Shebach, and Abednego, or we hear about, Daniel in the lion's den. And I am proof that there was a 4th man in the fire with those boys. I am proof that there was somebody in the lion's den to keep that lion's mouth shut, because God that day left the 99 for the one to come sit with his daughter in that hospital. God came to save me, y'all. God came to save me. And I'm just so grateful that he not just loved me enough as his daughter, but he loved my husband enough to hear his prayers. He loved my husband enough to keep his wife with him. He loved my babies enough to make sure they don't go a step in a day without missing their mama. I'm here, y'all. I'm raising my babies. I'm loving on them. I'm living life to the fullest. I'm walking in my purpose. And I'm just so grateful. I'm just so grateful. And I don't know what all God is going to do with just this story with my life, but I know God is a living, breathing, big God. And the same God that I serve, if you serve him, he's there for you too.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. That's it. I will go on and on, but yeah, I gotta stop. So
Oh my goodness, girl. Every time when I hear it again, my whole body is cringing. Just, oh my God, weeping inside profusely because that is such a powerful testimony. There is no way. If you didn't believe in God after hearing this testimony, you can't be humane. There's no way. After hearing that and seeing even pictures to even just to show like who else could have done that? Who else could have done it? Nobody but God. So I'm so grateful for your life. So, question for you: are you, even you and your husband, are you getting counseling from all that I've heard you went through? Are you receiving
absolutely.
counseling?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Whew, that's a lot.
It's been
That
traumatic, but
is so.
we're taking the necessary steps to get through it.
Amen. One day at a time. And so now, as far as medication, I know, when you talked about fentanyl, that's a true narcotic. And
Mhm.
um, are you on any medicines to kind of help you throughout the day? Um, Maybe for pain or just to kind of.
Well, just your typical pain, for pain medicines and things like that if needed. But a lot of the major medicines, I was on something called BDADP to help my brain work. And they thought I would be on that for the rest of my life. And by the grace of God, I'm no longer on that. And
I was
I've
going to say
just
that's what they said, but what is God?
right. So yeah, I was on labetalol, so many different medicines. But God, He has healed me tremendously. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Well, you don't look like what you've been through, sweetie. I will tell you that. And so that is truly your testament of how God is able to do the exceedingly and abundantly more than we could ask, think, dream, or imagine. So you are that one of the ones. And so I'm so grateful because he is so kind and he's so big. And yes, he will leave the 99 for the one. Been
Yes.
done that. I can attest to that. So I know that to be true. And so
Yes.
you are now also a living testimony of God coming to
Yes.
save the one. And
Yes.
so it is, whew, this is this girl because I have two daughters and Deshaya has been through, one childbirth, but she's not married yet. And then there's Slavasia. And so I don't know what tomorrow holds for them. So my prayer is for God's continue to just carry them through every step of the journey, every step of their life. Don't try to do anything without him because you just
Yes.
know where you find yourself. And as you said, you live for God. And if nobody loves God, Jaquette loves God.
I
And
do.
as you said, I love him. And like this just doesn't align with, what you have for me, God. Like what's happening? Where are you? I don't want to die. Don't let me die. Don't let me lie. So then, well, God, do what you need to do, type thing. And so it is, whew, girl, any mother, no mother would want to know this. And I, thank God that your mom didn't have to live through that because as a mother, I don't even know. I don't even
Mhm.
imagine having to go through that and be on the outside and my babies are going through something like that. So God bless you and everybody in your tribe. And I'm so grateful. And something else that has stuck out for me, your husband. It is so important that we are evenly yoked because
Mm.
going through things, you need a man to take his rightful place, not just when we're going through, but
Yes.
every day in life. So when
Yes.
things happen and trials come like that, you need him to show up. And the God that's in him needs to rise up. So he knows
Yes.
how to pray, what to pray. And he said, be angry, but sin not. And as he said, God, okay. Your word declares A, B, C, D. So if you don't do this, then you're a liar. And we know that he's not a liar. He can't lie. We know who the father of lies is, but because he's scared and he was, pretty upset from what
Yeah.
they said. But Holy Spirit tapped in and he began to hear the voice of the Lord. And so he started opening his mouth and praying. And that blessed me more than I can articulate. Let me tell you.
Yes.
That means the world to have a man that's riding with you and knows how to
Yes.
cover you in the spirit where the word of God is needed. If he don't know, and something my dad told my husband years and years ago, and we'll be married 29 years next month. He says it's impossible for a man to lead if he does not read.
Mm.
He said, hear me. He said, I've been here a long time. He said,
Ooh.
it's impossible. My dad, when God called him to glory, he was almost 90 years old. And a man just full of wisdom. And me and my brothers talk about him all the time, just how wise he was. And so, Sunday school, like he said, I love church. I love praise and worship. But Sunday school was everything to my daddy. And I'm just like,
Mm.
Sunday school. He said that's where you get your understanding. That's what it.
Mm.
So he was a chairman deacon for years, and so Sunday school was his baby. So
Yes.
it was so important. He said it's impossible. You can't lead your family if you don't read the Word of God
Read.
because that's the
Mm.
God. That's the compass. He said that's how you navigate through this thing we call life. So
It
if you
is. It
have
is.
that, you don't have the word in you, or you don't know what the word says. How are you going to lead? You can't lead from your genitals. That's
Right.
he said, you
Right.
can't expect her to do or respect you, and you not respecting her in a manner because God said, love your wife as Christ loved the church. So if you're supposed to be loving her that in that way, in that manner, that means you're doing what God has called you to do. You're following his precept line by line. So if you're not doing that, then, he said, you don't leave from the general. It don't make you a man because, oh, I have, a penis. And then, she got to do what I say because I wear the pants. Well, I wear pants too.
Right, right. And here's the issue, I would say, and I'm gonna make this brief. I think the issue that we've seen, it's so important. That's so good to say you can't leave if you don't read. But I think a lot of times, a lot of people, they look at the Bible or the Word of God as a book of just religion, and it's not. It's a manual for our lives. I
That's
mean, every single thing, it was created
it.
by, the manufacturer, right? He's the one who created us, and
Listen,
that word of God is the book
that's
and the
right.
instructions for our life. Like, you
Mhm.
have the iPhone that comes with the manual, right? You read the manual, then
That's
you
right.
understand you can get out of any situation. You can call in, you can do anything that you put your mind to if you read the word of God and you look at it from a kingdom perspective and know that there are principles within that Bible for you to walk out your purpose.
That's right. That's right. That's it. So, it's just, ooh, so that blessed me with everything that you were going through and all that my heart was just bleeding and just to hear it. But when your husband sit up and say, they told him, you go over there and wait and do whatever. And then when it signed papers and he stopped and heard the voice of the Lord speaking, he went and fell to his knees and went and talked to his Emmanuel, his Jehovah,
Right.
got
Mm.
the answer and the response that he needed on how to articulate back to them. And he didn't follow through with what the devil wanted him to do, to give in, to give out, and not put his trust in God. But I'm just so grateful. So yeah, that thing, that thing right there, and I just want to get up and run around my table. Listen, oh God, and I always tell my husband, I said that is one of the most attractive things is for me to see a man worship God, and I mean worship Him
Absolutely.
freely, not worship Him cool as the music is, the praise and worship is going on, and they just standing there. And so my daddy, that's something he said too, and I'm a daddy's girl as well, and all of my sisters will say that, but we all are truly daddy's girl. But that was something my daddy would say. He said it's like if you can't basically stand in front of me and you're talking about how good God is and telling me all of his goodness and all of his things, but you never are willing to show your expression of how good he is.
Mm.
He said, so to see a man in church and the song and everybody is moving and clapping and praising God, and they just standing there, just standing up because everybody's standing, and you're not giving God no act right, no expression. He said, well, I'm confused on how you telling me he's so good, but you too embarrassed to raise your hand, or you do
Mm.
this, on the slide. He said, if God is good to you, then you show him your appreciation. You open up your mouth and you shabak him. You call on him, tell him how much you love him. And so I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna let you close out. When I witnessed my dad when he had surrendered and gave his life back to God and said, Lord, he took the beer away, he took the cigarettes away. He said, I didn't have to go get no patches, I didn't have to go to no counseling, I didn't do any of that. I just made up my mind. He said, so that is the best thing that you can do. Once you can do anything if you have a made up mind. And so we were at a revival, and my brothers, two of my brothers were there, and there was a revival somewhere, I think, on John's Island. And so we're there, and my dad is going forth in his praise and his praise, and all of a sudden he just jumps up. And my dad was 6'5.5", so he jumped, and at that time he was so tall and strong, and he just kept saying, "Thank you, thank you." And I'm sitting there as a little preteen, and I'm looking, and I'm like, "Oh God!" So I'm scared because I don't know what is going to happen. And my daddy went to leaping and leaping, and he jumped so high until he just threw his hands up and thank you, God. And he's giving God praise. And they had a chandelier. My dad knocked the chandelier out the ceiling. And I mean, we had everybody, and my brothers kind of went over, was helping the other deacons, and he was bent over, but he was crying and weeping.
Wow.
Thank you.
Mm.
He said, but God had cleansed him and delivered him from the alcohol, the cigarettes, and he felt all, he said fire came over him and he could not contain his praise. So
Mm.
I saw my daddy do that. So,
Yes.
I'm just like, wow. So if my daddy is doing it and not embarrassed, I'm like, what's your problem? What's your deal? For just me and my husband, he's not like that, but I know that there's coming a time. There's going to be a time. I've seen it once or twice that I can think about honestly, but I think it's so attractive and it's so beautiful to see a man
Mhm.
praise and worship God with his whole heart and not trying to be cool in his worship or,
Yeah.
too cool to clap and too cool to go from left to right or side. Like, honey, you feel that thing and you know what God has done for you. You better give him what you got.
Give them what
Give
you
him
got.
what you got. So yeah, but this has been so phenomenal, girl, and I'm just gonna keep running it and running it because I want as many people to hear this because you have blessed me, and it definitely something it says your message, how important it is, even when you are, walking with God, your husband is walking with God. But if you're at the hospital and you have something going on, you want to have someone there with you that is in tune with the spirit and know how to pray, when to pray, and not only that, but just being aware that you're not in
Absolutely.
something situation alone. Because if you didn't have
Absolutely.
a call and say, babe, come check on me, something's happening. But if you're
Absolutely.
going to the hospital and some young ladies are going by themselves, no one is there. We never know what could have happened because
Right.
we already know they don't always tell the truth. They do not want to take liability for things that they've done wrong.
Right.
So that was the favor of God that you had a doctor in the midst of this stuff that was able and willing to open up and talk to you. And so
Right.
that's a blessing, but that's the favor of God that is on your life and the life of your husband. So I bless God for that. But if you have any closing words, and we're going to let them go. So Lord, please, if you tuned in late, you're going to have to catch the replay. If you see the light on, we're still live, but we're about to bring it to a close. So I'm going to ask you to please, please, please share, like this episode, and subscribe to the channel. I try to bring good things, important things, entrepreneurs that can encourage you to move forth in your purpose and reach to your destiny, not being afraid to step out or worry about competition. I always say here, we don't compete, we complement. So we don't compete here because my steps have been ordered. You can't walk in my steps and I can't walk in yours. So there is no need, sisters, queens, for competing. So it is important that you know who you are and whose you are. And at the time,
Mhm.
we will all rise together. So I want you, if you have anything that you can encourage them, if you could give them one positive something from what you've went through or what you in at this time. You're still in a process, because I know there's some other things that are transpiring. I bless God for that, and God is going to bless immensely for some of the trouble that you've been through. I trust and I believe that. So if there's something you can leave with us, we will let you go, and then maybe how they can have you come and speak on other platforms. I'm sure you do ministry and at church, and as you said, colleges, and wherever there are women or people, I'm sure you're willing to come, and at whatever particular fees or whatever, that's something between you and them. But I want them to be able to reach you if there is a website or some contact information, if you leave that, and just something to leave them with at the end of this episode.
Okay, absolutely. So first off, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you. You're so eloquent and just a bright light. So just thank you, thank you, thank you for having me, give me the platform to share my story once again, God's story, our story once again. And if I had any words of encouragement, it's to make honey. That's my philosophy of life. Make honey, and honey is you be who God's called you to be, do what He's called you to do. You'll have what He's called you to have, right? I think about bees, and I love honeybees. Honeybees are everywhere. Look, all yellow and black everywhere with me. But make honey means that you take care of home first. Bees take care of the hive, and part of being in the hive means going out fulfilling your purpose. So you have your worker bees, your drone bees. They go out and do what they're called to do, right? That's the doing. And then you'll have honey. It's automatically. And the good thing about honey is not just for you, so you have heaven on earth, but honey is also legacy, so other people get to reap off the benefits and the efforts of you stewarding your gifts and the calling and the purpose in your life. So make honey, and be sweet. Right. And if you want to feel free to reach out to me. I have a website. It's Jonquette. It's French. It's JONQUETTE.com. Jonquette.com. You can reach me there. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, all the different platforms.
Awesome and amazing. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you. So she's given her information, and we'll try to put it in the chat so that you, if you didn't catch it all, that it'll be there posted so that you can find it. But she is on Facebook, as she said, and TikTok as well as Instagram, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, okay. So social media platforms, she is available to be reached. So we're excited about what is to come for you and your beautiful family. Many blessings to you
Yeah.
and your husband for allowing you to come on the platform and share your journey. It has made such a major difference and an impact in my life, and I'm telling everybody about it. So
Thank you.
blessings to
Thank
you. All right. Well, we thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning in to Table Talk with the Diva. We've had a phenomenal time hearing Jonquette share her journey. My God, mothers, daughters, sisters, if you have young ladies in your life, you want them to be informed about what is going on. Things like this is
you.
happening quite often, probably more than we know. And so we don't want to be caught blindsided with things like this right here, and especially not having anyone in our corner or having a tribe to pray us through or be at the hospital with us when things are transpiring. So if you're going in there for a surgery on your toe, have someone with you that knows the word of prayer, the power of prayer, and knows that exactly I am going for a surgery on my toe, and they shouldn't be messing with my kidneys, or I'm not going for them to cut my ear off, because all kinds of foolery things happen. So we need someone in our corner. So we want to thank you for tuning in. And this is season number 11. God is so good. From February of 2020, the Lord said, Table Talk with the Diva. And we have been going strong for 5 years, and this is season number 11. So we have 2 seasons per year, and I am super excited. And there is more to come. So be watching for us on Spotify, and there is another platform, Instagram. because Instagram is kind of funny. But anyway, there's another platform so you will hear us on, and we will always be live: Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube live. So the platforms are getting bigger, and God is expanding, and we are yet growing and moving in purpose. Remember, before I leave you, I want to remind you always, which is one of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou: we may face many defeats, but we must never, ever be defeated. I don't care what they say. I don't care what's going on in government. Just know that we are overcomers. And so we are overcomers of the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. God has already done a thing before he starts it. So just know God is large and in charge. And I am the fabulous Diva, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Love you. Good night. Thank you, Junquette. Blessings, blessings, blessings.
She's a diva with a destiny. Got purpose and zest, you see. Books, business, and accessories. She walks in favor and she's blessed indeed. She keeps her head and her heels high, and her limit soars beyond the sky. If it's purpose she's pushing, you've tuned in with Table Talk with a Diva. Why? Join in, it might free ya. Hey, hey. And if you're feeling down, come in. The enemy he's trapped won't win. For God has given you vision, and in the end you shall win. Hey. Table Talk with a Diva. Why? Join in, it might free ya. Hey.